Hello and welcome back, YouTube. It's 10:41 p.m. Wednesday, September 20th, 2023. Yeah, I gotta look at the other thing. I don't remember the day and the date. I gotta look at it, or I don't know. Shit, I've had at least 3 times today. I had to check my phone to see what the hell the day of the week was. It's not easy being me, just saying. So, mostly okay day at work. It's kind of slow today. Today's been one of those days where it gets awkward because there's not enough cars for the amount of people that want to rent them. And so, of course, people trying to rent cars, let me out. They see me on the lot and they ask if I can help them. And I'm always one to try to help when I can. But I had a whole group of people, I want to say maybe 3-4 separate groups of people, all hit me with one problem that I absolutely could not solve. And oh god, my hair is terrible today. It's ready to lose the safety vest and the hat. Didn't even wear my ID badge today. At some point I misplaced it. I'm pretty sure it's at home. Speaking of misplacing stuff at a given point, I know when I left my break I had, in here? There's something in a bag in here. Oh, that's yesterday's tea. I had a big bottle of tea that was full, and a big bottle of tea, like unopened, and a big bottle of tea that was about half full. I don't know what I did with them. I lose stuff. All right, it looks like it's recording. I'm just heading home. I'm really eager to be at home. Last night at Priscilla's place was enough to remind me that I'm really happy to be at home alone. I don't think I fully explained what was up with that when I was recording on the way here to work. I'm going to try to get back to that, but on to the rest of my story of trying to help rental car customers. There's a bunch of different sections. I don't even know the names of all the sections. The only one that I really know the criteria for, and I'm kind of fuzzy on what the criteria for it is as well, is President's Choice. I think that's what it's called. Everybody that works there just calls it PC. I hate acronyms and abbreviations. Because to a Prince fan, PC stands for Pussy Control. And I just want to make sure that we're talking about President's Choice and not Pussy Control. And you could be referring to a potato clamp, for all I know. So let's stop with all the acronyms and abbreviations and say what we mean. I know the main criteria for PC, the section of rental cars at Hertz, is that it must have 25,000 miles or less. It also can't be a premium car, like what would be considered an ultimate car. In other words, it can't be a high-end Audi or a BMW or a Mercedes or a Dodge Challenger or a Ford Shelby Mustang. It can't be any of those type of cars. Now, initially I thought that just meant sedans and crossovers, but I guess we can also bring all kinds of other vehicles over. The criteria has never been fully explained to me, and I would love to have a pamphlet that really describes the criteria. I'm the kind of person that just feels the need to overanalyze and know that things properly fit criteria. And other than that, I'm sorting them the best that I know how. I was bringing over a Chrysler Pacifica. I checked the mileage, and it had over 25,000 miles on it. At that point, the only 2 places I know to put it are in the flip ramp. It seemed kind of pointless as short as we were on cars, or to put it in this area that's called reserved. We've got a bunch of stuff that's called reserved, but there's one reserved area that's used for pickup trucks, extremely large SUVs, the killing machine style. The ones that Not Just Bikes did the video about, explaining how they're causing an extreme uptick in fatalities on our roads. So yeah, I'm not fond of them, but I seem to find myself moving them a lot. I've noticed, and a lot of the stuff I'm picking up, I'm just picking up from what I'm observing. I've noticed that area, which I've also been told is where all the convertibles go, all the convertibles, so apparently no convertibles go to PC, and I've noticed that's where Chrysler Pacificas have been going. Now, I knew if it was 25,000 miles or less to take that Chrysler Pacifica. All right, we got it's like a Kia Soul missing its right tail light. So if it's under 25,000 miles, I would have put it in PC, because I knew we needed cars for PC, and that's kind of a busy section, and that seems to be a section that Hertz really cares about. Now, I don't really know the difference. Nobody's really explained to me what all these separate sections are. I barely know all the names of them. We've got PC, which is President's Choice, so the sign says President's Choice, and then there's Gold, and there's 3. Really know where 3 comes from, because I've never seen a 2 or a 1. I just see 3, which to me, if you turn it sideways, it just looks like boobs. See what I mean? Then there's some reserve sections, and then there's ultimates for, you know, the really high-end cars like I was describing. And anyway, I've seen Chrysler Pacificas showing up over at PC. So at this ginormous minivan, been under 25,000 miles, that's where I would have put it. But since it had around 31,000 miles or so, I put it in the reserved area that gets used for Jeeps and large SUVs and large vans and extended, like the short bus type extended vans and convertibles, that section. So at some point I'm going to memorize what stall number to what stall number it is, because I know they're like in the 900s over there. Anyway, I park it there, because I'm not quite sure where else to put it. Now when I park stuff there, I try to group it near other stuff of the same style. I just have a need for organization like that. Taillights remind me of a Kia EV6. I really like driving those. So I'm walking away from there. Now there's the machine, which I've talked about, where I learned how to, the angry elf taught me how to, who by the way today really looked like a sad elf, but that's a separate tragedy entirely. So he showed me how to use the paper slips to log cars into a stall. So anyway, I have to walk to where the machine is. Well, as I'm walking towards the machine, or maybe walking away from the machine, wow, that is not a good place to park your truck, dude. Somebody asks me, and he's coming from the gold section, the section where all the signs say gold, and says, I was told to go to gold to pick out a car, but I don't want an EV. Is there anything over here that's not an EV? For me, anytime somebody asks a question, like, I'm trying to process it, and I process everything sort of like a flow chart. So before I can tell him anything additional, I need to basically walk through all the cars that are in gold and determine that they're all EVs. From where I was standing, I couldn't really determine all that. So I'm like, well, let me take a look and see what's over here. And I kind of walked through it. Of course, the guy's kind of following me and talking about how he doesn't want an EV, and that's fine. Like, I get that. We've already established that. I'm trying to see if there's anything over here that's not an EV. And he's kind of following me. Well, as he's following me, these other group of people are like, hey, is there anything over here that's not an EV? And I'm like, well, that's what I'm So I'm trying to figure out right now, actually. Funny you should ask. And this is a pretty large group. I don't know if it's 2 different people that are getting, they're getting 1 or 2 different rental cars, but it's a pretty large group. But the guy is totally driving on the left-hand side of the road. Yikes. So anyway, I walked through, pretty much determined that, yeah, it's nothing but EVs over here. Personally, I don't like that they mix in the EVs with the sections with the gas cars, because I find it very confusing for the customers. Customers who want EVs. Customers who don't, I get the feeling for most people it's a fear of the unknown thing. They don't know what they need to do. They don't know how to drive one. They don't know how to charge one. They don't know where to go to get one charged. They just don't know. I get that. And everybody has different needs of a rental car. I don't know how many miles they're planning on going or where they're planning on going. I mean, people rent cars from Sky Harbor. Some people just rent them to go to nearby hotels and go to business meetings and then come back to the airport, and probably won't drive more than 50, 60 miles. And for that person, an EV is perfect. Most every EV that rolls out of our lot has got enough of a charge on it to go over 200 miles, more like 250 miles. So yeah, you'll be fine. I don't know what their return policy is on EV versus how charged it has to be. Now, at one point, the lead that I've been consciously trying to avoid, named Jesse, Uncle Jesse, I mentioned it before, right? It's just really clear to me that he's very low IQ, and the one day that I rode around with him, I had more than enough interactions with him that showed me that he makes bad decisions and poorly thought out decisions, and it's just really low IQ, and I have trouble working with somebody like that. I have trouble communicating with somebody like that, especially if that somebody is convinced that he's supposed to be telling me what to do. So, dang, I lost my train of thought. Jesse, something about Jesse. Damn, I completely lost my train of thought. I'm driving around and hoping that I see Sarah again. She never called me. And one thing that last night showed me is that I really need some female companionship that's not Priscilla. And I need it badly. I'd say bad enough to pay for it, but I really don't have any money for that. So where was I? Yeah, I can't see my gas gauge. One of these years I'm going to fix the gas gauge light in this car, but it's such a difficult task that I can't ever seem to get it together. I'm not out of gas, but it's getting pretty low. So I completely lost my train of thought. Used to be I always put electric vehicles in there's an electric vehicle reserved area. And since I started doing electrics, I've always put electric vehicles in the electric vehicle reserved area. To me, that seems like the place they should be. If you want an electric vehicle, you should be getting an electric vehicle. Now, I guess my problem is I don't really understand what the customer experience is like for Hertz customer. Nobody's explained that to me. Oh, and that's what I was going to say about Jesse. So I mentioned one time I was rolling around with Jesse, I asked, what's the policy if somebody returns? That somebody had asked me what the policy was, and I didn't know the answer. How much charge has to be on an electric vehicle when they return it? Now, I know the policy with gas. When you rent a car, it's got a full tank. And you can do one of three things. And I actually saw a sign over at Dollar and Thrifty that explains
see, I'm sure assuming Hertz is the same, and it seems like every time I've rented a car, I've never rented an electric vehicle. Every time, well, not other, other than a personal electric vehicle. Every time I've rented a gas car, you've got one of three options. You can bring it back with a full tank. That's your best bet. You can prepay, and I'm not sure how that works, for them to fuel it at what's considered a market rate, and there's a service charge or something. I don't really know how that works. And I guess because I really don't know how that works, I'm like, you know what, I'll bring it back with a full tank of gas. That's what I always do. It's not that hard. You just don't buy your gas at the station that's right next to the airport, because that place is always going to be price gouging. You use Gas Buddy or you use Google Maps to find out where the nearest Costco location is. If you're like me and you got a Costco membership, and you completely top it off there. And if that's within about 5 miles of the place where you're returning your rental car, then you just don't fucking worry about it, because it's not going to go down enough that they can tell that it's not like topped off. They're not going to know. It does need to be within 5-6 miles. But the third option, and this is the bad option, this is the one you don't want. This is when you don't prepay for it. I don't know, but how do you prepay for it? How do you know how much gas you're going to use? I don't know how that works. I guess that's why I've always avoided that other option, because it's confusing to me. How they predict that future? I don't know. I don't get it. I should take a picture of that sign over at Dollar Thrifty that explains it. Maybe if I looked at it more closely, I could analyze it and understand it better. Because the more I think about it, the more questions I have. Anyway, the other policy is you bring it back, and then they charge you a ridiculous amount of money to fuel it up. And I think when I looked, it was something like $13 per gallon or something obscene like that. I don't remember how much it was. Whatever it was, I looked at that and I'm like, suddenly $5.99, it sure doesn't seem so bad. Now I see why people look at that and they're like, well, yeah, it's cheaper than the 13 they said they're going to charge me if I bring it back not full, so fuck it. I get it. But with electric vehicles, what's the policy? I don't know. I still don't know. And I keep meaning to ask somebody, but it's not the kind of thing that just casually comes up in conversation. But I asked Jesse, and what Jesse said to me, and I don't remember exactly what he said, but I do recall it being contradictory within itself. Like a contradictory statement, like saying, oh my God, it's so dark out here, the brightness is hurting my eyes. I'm sorry, that's contradictory. Is it dark out here, or is the brightness hurting your eyes? Because it can't all be true. So, anyway, what he said definitely was something that couldn't all be true. And I wish I could remember what it was, but I just remember that whatever it was, it sounded like he was basically talking out his ass and trying to sound like he knew stuff that he didn't know. He said, well, they charge you for it. I'm like, well, at what rate do they charge you? Because there seems to be a lot of inconsistency on the rate for charging of electric vehicles. There's no normal market rate that you can go on Gas Buddy and ascertain. Some places charge you by the amount of hours that you're sitting on a charger. Other places charge you by the kilowatt hours that you consume. Other places, electric car charging is complimentary as long as you're a customer and you park in that spot. Speaking of electric cars, I think it's a Tesla Model 3 right up ahead on my left there. I recognize those taillights. I'm noticing an issue with those taillights on the outer taillights, because there's actually two pieces in there. The piece on the outer edge, you seem to have an issue with retaining moisture, and that moisture eventually shorts out the light and makes it not work. It's something I've been noticing on the Teslas. Oh, that guy's taillights seem to be working really well. Yeah, that was definitely a Tesla, either a Model 3 or a Model Y. So I don't know what the deal is. I think I could help people who are uneasy about taking an electric car when there's nothing available but an electric car. If I could tell them, well, you know what, if you bring it back with no charge, how many miles are you going to go? What's your trip plan? Well, it's good for about 200, it's good for a little over 200 miles. And if you bring it back with no charge, then that's fine. You can do that. But I don't know if they can do that. I really don't know what the policy is. Because the way that Jesse said that they charged makes absolutely no sense. And one thing I know for certain, I'm one of the main guys that charges electric vehicles. That's been like one of my things for like a month. And I do not keep track of how much juice I put in them. It's not tracked like gallons of gasoline is tracked. Just plug them in, and it takes as long as it takes. As I explained a few days ago, they don't even charge at a steady rate, so charging by the hour wouldn't make any sense either. It's how the amount of amperage determines how fast it charges, and the amount of amperage is divided by however many cars are on an individual circuit that the multiple chargers are on. Which I get a feeling most people don't understand that, because I've noticed that they've been moving cars off that were charging fast just to get them washed and moved to other chargers where they're not going to charge fast. And it would seem to me that the goal is to get them available for rent as quickly as possible. So if it was on a charger where it was charging pretty quickly because it wasn't sharing the amperage with a bunch of other cars, if you wash it and then you put it above where it's still got a charge, but it's sharing that amperage with a whole bunch of cars and isn't going to be done until like tomorrow afternoon, then what was the point in hurrying up and washing it? Wouldn't it have been better to leave it on that charger where it was charging fast? And then when it finishes in the wee hours of the morning, like when the first morning shift comes in for the car wash, they can wash it first thing, as soon as somebody can take it off the charger. I don't know. I guess I think too hard about this kind of stuff. But anyway, I don't know what the policy is on the return. I wish I could tell people that, because I think that would maybe put some people who are uneasy about taking an electric car more unease about it, more at ease about it. Anyway, I felt bad because these guys are all asking me stuff, and you know, once I determined that yeah, there was nothing there but electric vehicles, all I could tell them is, yeah, you're going to have to go talk to somebody in the Hertz office. Like, I can't help you with that. I work for MLS. I'm a subcontractor who moves vehicles around and charges electric vehicles and troubleshoots vehicles for issues. I don't understand how your rentals work at all. I don't even understand it. Not only can I not fix it, I don't understand it. I understand you're in a section that's called gold, but I don't really know what that means or what the criteria is for gold. But I recognize your frustration in not wanting to go into the great unknown of electric vehicles, and there being nothing here but electric vehicles when you had no intention when you rented a gold vehicle to rent an electric. I'm sorry, I'm probably just talking in circles and boring the shit out of everybody right now, but that was kind of my biggest thing at work today, and just feeling really helpless, just wishing I had more knowledge, but I don't really have anyone to teach me, and the only one who seems to want to act like he's telling me what to do is clearly less knowledgeable. I shouldn't say clearly less knowledgeable than me. In many ways, he is more knowledgeable than me, but when I ask him questions, he can't answer it. And when he doesn't know the answer to the question, he's clearly too proud to say, I don't know. So he just makes shit up. And I find a lot of people do that. A lot of neurotypical people do that. It's like there's a shame, or they feel like they can't say, I don't know. They have to say something. Like if I ask somebody, hey, do you know how to do something on an iPhone? And they go, oh yeah. And then they grab the iPhone, and then they start clicking and tapping and clicking and tapping, when in fact they don't know how to do it. They just think they can figure it out. The question was, do you know how to do a specific thing on an iPhone? If you don't, absolutely, beyond any shadow of a doubt, like you could write a report with a pencil on paper of how to do it. If you don't know, just tell me no. I don't want you fucking with my iPhone otherwise. And I don't want you fucking with my iPhone at all anyway. I want you to tell me what to do so I can do it, so I can learn by me going through the motions at your directions. But yeah. There's some other stuff with Jesse that made it really clear he was pretty low IQ. Like one car that had, I think, 2,300 miles on it, or no, I think it had 4,200 miles on it, but he said it had 42,000 miles on it. I think I told that story in this vlog already. Anyway, I'm home. I just want to relax. Last night at Priscilla's place was hell. I never did get around to explaining how it was hell, but just suffice it to say it was, I suppose, better than being stuck out in my car. But I was extremely miserable pretty much the whole time I was there.